The views or opinions expressed in the following broadcast do not necessarily reflect those of staff or management of DSE-TV. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to Where Do We Go From Here? I'm your host, Kimon Kotos, and joining me today is Pastor Tim Cross from the Living Word Church in Muskegon. And Pastor Tim, thank you very much for joining us.
It's good to be here. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about your background and the program that you're going to be having coming up for men only.
Okay.
Here on DSE-TV. Right. And tell us about your work here in the community.
Okay. Well, I've been here for about 25 years now and pastored here in Muskegon at Living Word Church. We've been at various locations. I think we started 25 years ago down at the Y, and then we moved to a building on Allen Avenue, and then we purchased a building a number of years ago on Wood Street, the old Church of the Open Door, and had a great time ministering in the community. I've had the opportunity to travel around the world. I've taken about 35, 40 mission trips, been to about 20 different nations of the world, and got to see all sorts of things, third world countries and first world countries, I guess. Been throughout Europe and Central and South America and Asia. Got one trip to Africa, so we've done a bit of that. I've been in prison ministry. We've done prison ministry for about 21 years, going into Muskegon Correctional Facility for the most part. I've gone into a few others, but have got to do work with a lot of prisoners and got to see some great things happen in their lives, is seeing the Word of God get into their lives and begin to change their lives. Probably one of our greatest success stories in ministry was a man that I met in prison, is now a missionary in Honduras, and that wasn't an immediate transition. He got out of prison, and we discipled him, worked with him. He spent about 15 years in our ministry, and then we were able to send him out as a missionary. So we've seen some fun things and done some fun stuff through the years, and 25 years of ministry. And one of the other passions that I've had is really a men's ministry, and being able to talk to men and minister to men, and because I believe that there's really a crisis in manhood in the church, in the nation, and in our community. And so through the years, I've had an opportunity I've had an opportunity to sow into men, but I've also had the opportunity to get around some national and international leaders of men's ministry that have really worked at ministering to men and teaching men. And you know, it somewhat used to be that we had a pretty good example of what manhood was in the United States of America. I don't want to say this is a godly example, but yet I think somebody like John Wayne back in the 40s and 50s, and you know, that was somewhat the example of manhood. Not that was a godly example. Now I like John Wayne. I've got a lot of John Wayne movies at home, but somewhat that example or that image of manhood, you know, whether it was the Marlboro Man, not that I'm for smoking or anything, but there was that certain image of what a man was, and that image, we've seemed to have lost that. And even just the image of a good father, of a good man in the community, we've lost that image. And so part of what we're looking at is doing a program for men only. And I know there's sports programs, you know, for that basically are geared towards men. And I enjoy sports and played sports and things like that. But we wanted to put together a program when Ann called me, and, you know, and we looked at doing a program. I didn't just want to do a church program. There's a whole lot of church programs out there. But part of my passion and part of the thing that's in my heart is, how can we teach men today to be men? You know, what does manhood look like today? Okay. And so I think that's really the heart of what we're looking at doing, and that's why the program's called For Men Only.
Well, that's great, and you know, and I'm sure you've learned that faith transcends barriers and language, and yes, you know, the Word of God, you know, is spoken and understood all over the world. Yes. But even for our broader audience, you know, I'm sure that women can gain from this in terms of getting a perspective on how men think, how men shape their lives, some of the challenges that we have as men, whether we had a strong two-parent household, or someone in our lives as men, an uncle, a friend, a teacher, a co-worker, someone who really gave us some focus. But it's not just the stereotype that we're talking about. It's also about building character, understanding your role in being a member of a community, being able to do the Word of God in terms of in deed and how you treat your fellow man.
Absolutely. And I was raised just from my background. My father really struggled with alcohol, and my parents were divorced when I was 9 years old, and we had an uncle, one of my mother's brothers, come and live with us, and so in those formative years, and he played a little bit of that role in my life, but I just want to say he wasn't a good example, if I could say it that way. So I went through a situation. I got into high school and started playing sports, in junior high and high school. And there was a longing in my heart that, I wanted to be a man, but my mother, and she did the best she could, and I've told her she softened up after she married my stepfather, who was a very good man, but she had to play that role of mom and dad for a period of time. That was a very difficult role for her. But she did find somebody like my uncle that could teach me some things and show me some things. And, sometimes I think that mothers, especially single mothers, get into a real tough spot where they're trying to play two roles, and really trying to find that example, trying to find somebody for their young boys or what have you. Mm-hmm. And even today, I might even say this, some young women need to know what a real man looks like. What should you be looking for out there? Because sometimes young girls are looking for somebody that's just good looking and got, has got some moves or what have you. But that's not necessarily the kind of guy you want to marry. What's a real man look like?
Well, in the long run, you want someone who's going to be respectful and care about you and think about what your future is as well.
Or I might just say this, somebody that's responsible.
Oh, wow, imagine that.
A man that... back in probably, I think it was 1980, 1981, somebody gave me a book that was called Maximize Manhood by a man by the name of Ed Cole, he's gone home to be with the Lord a few years back. And that book really revolutionized my life, because in I had an opportunity to meet the man. I do a number of things with his son now, but he was a real man. And I mean, he didn't play games, but one of Ed Cole's sayings, that they call them Coleisms, but one of his sayings is that maturity is not based on age, but it's based on the handling and the accepting of responsibility.
And that's really key.
And that's why you have some 15-year-old boys in a 50-year-old body, because they've never learned how to handle responsibility, and they've not accepted responsibility. But some of that needs to be taught, and it needs to be modeled. And we're going to do our best through this program to teach some of the principles, do our best to present an image, but some of it, and maybe I might say this, one of the reasons for the local church, especially for single mothers, one of the things that we're a good local church with a good men's ministry, and there's a number of them out there, but a good local church with a good, strong men's ministry is a great place to bring, if you're a single mother, to bring your boys, to let them, if they've got some godly men that have learned how to take responsibility and be an example, that's a great place to take your boys to say, this man may not be perfect, but here's an example. Here's somebody you can be like.
Well, and I think it's not just about in a corrective manner, but it's also something to celebrate.
Yes, sir.
About manhood and responsibility. And I know that in my generation, there was different notions about, our parents wanted us to have the freedoms to do things ourselves, and we had that notion of do your own thing, which wasn't really about go crazy. It was about find a course for your life. But oftentimes in the past used to be called permissiveness. But I think the big challenge for men in this world is learning to grow up and make mature decisions and being able to handle things. And oftentimes they've either had someone who picked up the slack, a parent, or someone who let them get away with stuff, and they thought, well, I guess I can get away with it. And these are the things that, it's like the idle mind is the devil's playground. Mm-hmm. These are the things that lead people to go astray and forget that, instinctively, we probably do know what it takes to do the right thing. But having that guidance, whether it's through the Lord or through a fellow man or someone in our life, even a mother or female friend, they help you get focused on how does my life really matter? How can I make it work so that I'm healthy and I treat
this? I think one of the greatest problems with men staying immature is selfishness, because a lot of times it's all about me, and I taught a series a little while back, and I'd say this to men, I'd say this really to everybody in terms of, I was teaching on where Jesus said, you got to take up your cross and follow him. And in teaching that, I said, what the cross is an instrument of death. It was designed to kill you. That's what a cross was. And I said that, now let me illustrate it for you. I said, we have a number of instruments of death in our lives. They're designed to kill us. And people looked at me and said, okay, Pastor, what's that? I said, marriage is an instrument of death. It's designed to kill you. and if you don't let it kill you, you'll end up killing your marriage. Because marriage is designed to get the selfishness out of you. You can't just think about yourself all the time and have a healthy marriage.
Well, that's a real strong point to end on. We're gonna take a break, and we want you to stay with us with Pastor Tim Cross.
This program is sponsored in part by